Who will Texas Tech play in the Big 12 championship? It could be Cincinnati, Houston, Utah, BYU, Arizona State. I know who it will be. I can tell you who it will be. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Texas Tech crossover.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Texas Tech crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. That's Casey Cowan of Locked On Texas Tech. All things Red Raiders every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the country. Casey, let's start it. Texas Tech is a lock. They're in the Big 12 championship game in my book, and I don't think that will waver. I mean, they're going to Arlington. It's a weird thing. We'll get into why it's a weird thing, too, because I think Texas Tech fans being this confident about something that is still weeks away is a new feeling probably, but they're dominant. We'll start there. Then we'll get into BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Houston. The Big 12 feels more elite at the top right now than they did last year or the year before. It feels like finally this conference is starting to see teams at the top that can win on the national level. And finally, what are the real odds that Texas Tech could compete for a national championship? With that defense, they should be high. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Casey, first and foremost, that there it is. Texas Tech fans feeling the pressure of being a Big 12 championship caliber team going to Arlington, but the season's not over yet. Is there still that air of what could go wrong?
No question. We've seen some wild things before, and there's a, minus 21.5, minus 23.5 type of number for the Red Raiders on senior day against UCF. So we're in big time all due respect mode on Locked On Texas Tech, which we always are. We're focused on the task at hand. But, yeah, you feel like you're firmly in a driver's seat now, and we've sort of been riding that roller coaster last few weeks where you felt like you might have been in control of your destiny, then felt like you'd need some help here or there after you drop one in Tempe, and then some things break certain ways, and you wind up taking care of your biggest opportunity yet against BYU. Felt like it was a must-win, obviously, and though we're not using the word lock other than Locked On Texas Tech when it comes to a conference championship game appearance just yet, again, you feel like you're in a driver's seat and leaning on what Tech is leaning on. That defense, really feel like that's going to be traveling anywhere, and will continue to cook for the Red Raiders these final few weeks. So unlike in some other years where you're really having to rely on outscoring people or like a really big day for the quarterback, and we know that can dry up sometimes maybe when you hit the road or if it gets a little colder or you get into November or whatever it might be, but not so thankfully with the defense. So we're feeling great, but I don't know that I'm throwing that word lock around just yet.
It was a great Chris Level quote a few weeks ago. He said, you got to go to Morgantown. Weird things happen when you go to Morgantown. And these next two games on paper should be big wins, double-digit wins for Texas Tech. They likely will be. But things could fall apart. I want to get into the possible championship scenarios and who Texas Tech could play down the stretch here. But first, let's say that there is that doomsday. Let's say that Texas Tech loses to West Virginia, and because of that two-loss tiebreaker conglomerate, you miss Arlington or you miss the college football playoff. How big of a disappointment is this season, if that, which it shouldn't be, if that is the case?
Well, I think given the heights you've sailed to so far this year, it'd be an incredible disappointment. Coming into the year, I'm projecting a 9-3 record, and I'm already telling myself as a fan, I'm not going to be mad at that because you're in a space that you're not accustomed to inhabiting if you're a 9 or 10 win team as a Tech fan. But you did have Arlington or bust aspirations, so that's number one on the list coming into the year. And I think the bust is very literal in the sense that fans would be let down. I know the staff and players, everybody would be let down if you don't wind up even making it there. If you wind up there and you somehow are squeezed out of a playoff field in some scenario where you're dropping that game or whatever it might look like, I think you're going to understand that a little bit more. But as you've gotten this far into the year and there's so much talk about how good your defense has been, having one of the nation's best players or two of the nation's best players in Jacob Rodriguez and David Bailey, it's really got you dreaming. And I can just speak personally about it because, I mean, I'm a lifelong Red Raider, so I can be as skeptical as they come to some hype and things like that coming into a year. But they've gone out and proved it in the areas that matter most to me. Again, you've been able to run the football pretty well, and you're playing defense every week. Your special teams game has been a point of advantage for the Red Raiders also. And that's really from all angles, whether it's a return game or going after punts or field goal kicking, punting, whatever it might be. So I think you've got a lot of the makeup to be considered a championship within conference caliber kind of team. Can you compete nationally? Again, with the defense, I'll roll the dice with that any day. But yeah, I don't know. I think some were still kind of pacing themselves expectation-wise as we got into this. But obviously the offseason investment and so many things leading up to it knew that those internally were expecting to be in Arlington and felt like it would be a real letdown if it wasn't that way. And what they've proven so far, I think, has gotten just about everybody on board to thinking it's still very much Arlington or bust. It's not your one shot at it. Breaking news, you will continue to invest in trying to compete for football wins no matter what happens this year. But when you're in a driver's seat and it is mid-November, there's no way to get around the fact that it'd be a huge letdown if you're not winding up there after how far you've come.
No doubt. It would, and this is the pessimist in me growing up an Arkansas fan. Just every year, even when you were good, you weren't good. You back your mind, like what's going to go wrong? You know, the idea that Tech could slip to West Virginia and go from 24 hours before that thinking, wow, we're going to win the national championship, to sitting at 12th in the country, one spot out of the college football playoff, no bid to Arlington. Things can certainly go wrong, but like I said, I don't think they will. Instead, I foresee Tech, who sits at the top of the Big 12 standings right now, Tech being in Arlington, playing the likes of a BYU or a Cincinnati, Houston, Utah, Arizona State, all seem to be in the category of schools Tech could play. If you've got the pick of that bunch and you've already beaten the piss out of a couple of them, who would you like to see come Big 12 championship time based on what you've seen in the games between Texas Tech and a lot of these contenders?
You know, there's a total unknown factor as far as Cincinnati goes, and Tech's not going to face them in the regular season. So I'm almost tempted to take a stab at sort of the unknown, with all due respect to Cincinnati. I can't emphasize it enough. But I got to tell you, some of what I saw from BYU as well made me really like that matchup. And I think BYU is a great team. Obviously, breaking news, they've got one loss on their resume. But I don't know offensively if the explosiveness is there for them in a way that could hurt you, even if you have to go back around and we had a rematch there. But I honestly didn't mind the way that it was breaking down for BYU. And I kind of thought if you played that game 10 times, you're probably winning it 9.5. Again, with all due respect, Drake, I know you echo those sentiments, but Cincinnati kind of being that unknown, a lot of respect, though, obviously, for what they got going on at the QB position is tempting. I don't know if maybe ignorance is bliss in some way with what we haven't seen up close and personal, but it'd have to be one of those two, I guess.
So is there a reason you're avoiding Utah in that conversation?
I feel like Utah is defensively as good as it's gotten as far as wreaking havoc. And with our quarterback situation and the thin line between we're in good shape versus, we're panicking, I'm still having some nightmares about the Daly kid from Utah, just singularly talking about some of these individuals that can really change games. I'm happy with the result in Salt Lake, and I'm fine with that just being the result for the year between these two teams. I think that would also uniquely, in some way, Drake, be a program that is so motivated to exact some revenge maybe on the Red Raiders. I imagine that it's not quite the rivalry game with BYU as far as that impact of taking a loss, but that one had to sting a little while ago, and I doubt they've gotten over that.
No doubt. Coming up, BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, the elite teams at the top of this conference feel different this year. Is the Big 12 taking a new step into being a contender at the national scale? This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Texas Tech crossover. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is exactly where I go this time of year, where college football heats up the most. And I want to go to college football games. I cannot be more excited with how the Big 12 is shaking out down the stretch. And with Gametime, it's an app that gives me the advantage. And it gives the advantage back to you. We're the fans. Pull up Gametime, couple tabs, see amazing deals. Talking your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app makes it super simple. Could even see the exact view from my seat before I buy it. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off at Gametime. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime and do it today. Casey Cowan of Locked On Texas Tech. I've still got the Big 12 standings up here, where BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, to me at least, and in my power rankings this week, there's a gap between the Red Raiders and pretty much everybody else. BYU sits in that second chair, Utah in the third spot. I think there's a second gap after that. Are we seeing, you've watched Texas Tech, the Big 12, for a long time. Is this as good as it's gotten as far as having 2 or 3 elite squads at the top of this league, as good as it's gotten here in quite a while?
I'd probably hesitate maybe to run that far in that direction just yet. I still, when we're talking elite, I assume you're talking about competing for a national championship.
No doubt,
that kind of category, right? I think, some of the top of the Big 12 being as sound as they are in certain areas, again, in the trenches, defensively, things like that, gives me a little bit more hope as to how they can compete maybe on the national level, but I'm still going to have big time questions when it relates to the best of the Big Ten or the best of the SEC. I guess the more interesting angle to me as far as the national kind of picture has sort of been the Big 12 ACC dynamic. And I think it's been great to see some of what has been afforded to the Big 12 as far as respect so far, just in a few initial looks at the lay in the land college football playoff rankings wise. But maybe it's just, again, the guy in me that's saying, I don't know if you're really lining up in the trenches across all these teams nationally and acting like you belong just yet. But I'm ready to be persuaded and become a believer if that's going to be the case here this postseason. But it wasn't too long ago where you did have the Longhorns roaming around, and God bless, I do remember that last taste of a Longhorn defensive front in a conference setting. It wasn't pleasant. And some of those others in that category. So I don't feel like you've hit a new stride or anything like that. But I do think that you have regathered yourself as a new creation as far as this new era of the Big 12. And in this new era, this is, I think, about as sound as you've been, possibly as far as being nationally elite. So I'll buy into a portion of it.
That's where I think I'm coming from, and the thought that I had today. Of last year at this time, we were confused. Who's good? Who's not? Who's the Big 12 champion? Who's going to represent us in the college football playoff? And we didn't know until that last weekend that it would be Arizona State, Iowa State playing in Arlington. And overall, underwhelming is not the right word. But it reminds me of when my Texas Rangers played in the World Series, where at some level the nation just doesn't respect it. That Rangers and Diamondbacks World Series didn't get the same pomp that Dodgers and Blue Jays would get, or Yankees and whoever, and it felt a little more empty. You're like, no, everybody, but watch, pay attention. Come on, my team's there. And the country didn't quite care about the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. That's what it felt like to me. Arizona State, Iowa State, especially the blowout in the title game. It's just, all right, great. The Big 12 champion gets in because we're going to let them in, and Arizona State got to move on from there. This year feels like we now have clearly 3 teams at the top of college football, in the top 15, that could contend for a college football playoff spot. And again, Casey, you've watched a lot of Big 12 for a long time. I can't think of, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, those Baylor and Oklahoma State teams, or that Kansas State TCU defenses that looked like this, from Isaiah Glasgow to David Bailey to the myriad, Jack Kelly, the myriad of guys who are putting the Big 12 at the top of college football. I think that's what's different to me. We've got 3 teams that all have and you saw it, 5 field goals from Tech, because the BYU defense is pretty darn good. If not for the special teams, Tech doesn't flip the field, have good field position. If not for turnovers, Tech doesn't flip the field, have good field position. BYU to Utah to Texas Tech, these defenses feel unique to the Big 12.
I think you want your league narrative more so led by defenses than just being, say, the league of the quarterback or something like that, as we've experienced before, if I just had to choose one or the other. But as well as I do, and it's one of the things I hate most about college football as a college fan. I feel like consumers are done a great disservice because so much is wrapped up in the marketing of it all. Once upon a time, even with Longhorns and Sooners in the league, Baylor and Texas Christian are battling it out. League is down. Longhorns and Sooners are up top. Must be a great league. If the middle part of the league beats the top part of the league and you're in the SEC, how strong is that middle of the league? Middle part of the league beats the top part of the league in the Big 12. Boy, what a weak top part of the league in the Big 12. Luckily, we're getting further away from that type of stuff really ruling the day with an expanded college football playoff. Praise God. I hope we continue to plunge into a direction that sees an even bigger field. We've still got a committee to deal with, and these goobers were doing their one-act play with their hats on the rack not too long ago, so big eye roll over that. Still too much power and influence from selectors and those in boardrooms for my liking. but you're going to continue to fight this uphill narrative. You are not a logo conference necessarily. BYU, by virtue of what they are, obviously represents a national fan base, I think, in a lot of ways. But you got to go out and take everything. Nothing's going to be given to you. I think on just about any given Saturday, the Big 12 is a tougher league than, say, the ACC. And I really think if we're in reality, that's who you're trying to elbow out from the table and carve some space out for yourself at the expense of. And it's been a good year, I think, for that argument as far as the Big 12 is concerned so far. But yeah, back to the original gist of the conversation. I'm glad to be watching a league that's hanging their hat more so on what happens in the trenches and what happens defensively as compared to some of those other go-rounds where it's really just been all about the offense and mostly all about the quarterbacks.
Yeah, this is not the Dana or the Art Briles version of Big 12 football you had 10 years ago. This is now predicated on playing good, strong defense. And guys like Matt Campbell helped bring that into the Big 12. Guys like Chris Kleiman facilitated that early on. Dave Aranda when those teams were good 5 years ago. And now it seems like the rest of the schools are catching on to, okay, we need good trench play defensively. Coming up, is that good trench play defensively good enough for Texas Tech to compete for a national championship? This is Locked On Big 12 and Locked On Texas Tech. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is exactly where I go during the college basketball season and the NBA. You know what? The NBA is not my favorite thing to watch, transparently. But the reason that it's way better this year, number one, my San Antonio Spurs are good again. And number two, is with the NBA being back and FanDuel being partnered right there with it, there's no better place to get in on the action and make it even more fun. The official sports betting partner of the NBA is FanDuel. Even if you miss the start of the game, want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to those fourth quarter comebacks. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All of that and more with FanDuel. He's Casey Cowan of Locked On Texas Tech. Keep it simple. Can the Red Raiders compete for a national championship?
With that defense, absolutely. I think you are in elite, rarefied air. Obviously, there are other sides of the ball that will come into play, but your defense is nationally elite caliber. I don't only buy into statistical rankings, and not all statistical rankings are made equally, but you can check whichever one is your favorite, and you're going to find the Red Raiders on a short list. And primarily, stopping the run, killing the quarterback. That's what it comes down to me defensively, and you'll have some receiving the benefit of that on the back end as far as takeaways and turnovers and all the fun stuff that comes with that. But it's hard to find many who have been better within the interior of the defensive line or obviously on the edge. Lee Hunter, A.J. Holmes Jr., Romello Height, David Bailey. We're missing a guy who was a cornerstone of that group, and Skylar Gill-Howard, who's out giving a pregame speech on a scooter every week. You should see that. You ever been riled up by a guy on a scooter? Not easy to do, but that's how it goes with SGH. But yeah, I am believing in a nationally relevant, elite, title-worthy kind of way in this defense. Do you want to ask me about the other things?
So I thought special teams looked really good against BYU. That is, they were national championship caliber against the Cougars, from flipping the field with a punt game to draining all your field goals. Was that a flash in the pan, or is the special teams at a point right now where Texas Tech has met the ceiling, and that ceiling's a good ceiling?
That could be true, but no, it's not a flash in the pan. The special teams game has been a plus all season long. And like I said earlier, it's really been all angles. You've been going after punts, getting close on a lot. You've blocked a few. You've been returning well. As far as the kick return game particularly gets a boost with Jacoby Williams being back there. He's a guy they would have wanted to use in that spot from the get-go. He's one of Tech's two running backs. But I think the Quentin Joyner injury, the USC transfer, who's going to be coming in and leading that group early, kind of derailed that, where they really wanted to make sure they had the backfield shored up. But eventually, Jacoby Williams finds his way to returning some kicks. He's already got one for a TD and some other big gainers. I think your field goal kicking situation has been interesting because you were sort of in a competition, but there was a clear hierarchy that remained the same way from fall camp basically to now. But Stone Harrington has taken it and run with it. He's had a cannon for a leg, I think, for a while, but didn't necessarily trust in the accuracy or reliability. Well, that's out the window now. He's shown a clutch component, I think, in some of these kicks, and obviously some of the deepest we've seen in college football this year have been courtesy of his legs. So, no, this is one of the things that I think really has to reveal itself as either kind of championship caliber or not. I think so often about the way Bill Snyder used to talk about special teams, and we've all heard whatever coach talk about hidden yards, hidden points, and things like that. And Tech's been taking advantage of it. It's been a long time since I've seen such a complete effort. You've had like some salty kickers here or there, maybe a returner that would get you excited, but credit to Kenny Perry, the Tech special teams coach. The group entirely has been an advantage.
Watching every snap of this Tech and BYU game, when we talk about the offense, the Tech offense scored 14 points. It scored 2 touchdowns, I should say, and still struggled in the red zone to the point of 5 field goals. Is that national championship caliber? What do you do with an offense that just doesn't jump off the page right now?
Yeah, that's what everybody's going to be coming back to and thinking about what might trip up the Red Raiders. It's kind of interesting because you've had a really productive rushing season, and I love Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams. They are home run capable. There's no question about that. But coming into the year, we did kind of question whether or not you'd be able to get yards in short yardage situations, red zone situations. And I still don't think you've really been in that category for the most part as either an offensive line or a pair of ball carriers. It's kind of interesting because you swapped out Taj Brooks, who was one of the best short yardage guys in the nation, but not necessarily a home run hitter last year. And now you've gone the other way where you're still hitting those home runs, and that's mighty fine. If you don't want to get into the red zone and you just want to take it to the house from 73 out, fine with that too. But yeah, I think we're all kind of wondering when the other foot could fall, and the field goals are not going to be doing it. But there is obviously a different kind of sense or confidence in this defense in those situations that makes you feel a little bit differently about that. But there's some unease. We all know the line is very, very thin QB health-wise. Baron Morton dealing with a hairline fracture that's just obviously not going to heal up. And he was banged around a little bit against BYU. But there's no question the offensive line really has got to see if they can get into road grader kind of category. I've probably overused that term as much as any this offseason because it's just like, or I'm sorry, this season, because it's week to week, like road grader watch. Okay, we're getting some yards or we're doing some things on the outside. Are you really punishing what's across the line of scrimmage from you? I don't know that they've been there. They've done it a few times where you felt that way. You've got some flashy rushing statistics. It has been an effective ground game, but yeah, when it gets really, really tight, you're in the red zone or it's 4th and 3, whatever. They know you want to run the ball. Can you do it? I think the jury's still out on that, and it's definitely been a mixed bag so far this season.
Given the amount of times that Baron Morton was under pressure and sacked against BYU, that is a concern still for me. The pass protection, and maybe they are coverage sacks. Are the receivers struggling to get open? There are layers to that, but overall, the offensive line giving Baron Morton more time will be key as he nurses a pretty serious injury that you can't bench him for. You just got to have Baron Morton. That leads me to the crescendo of it all. Georgia, Indiana, Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, these teams that are in the top of college football right now. Ole Miss. Can Texas Tech beat those teams?
I really feel like you've got a defense capable of having you there. Can you beat those teams? It may come back to whether or not your offense can make a play, put together a drive, do something in the final minutes when your defense has put you in a situation in the fourth quarter to go get it. Now, can Jacob Rodriguez continue to get into the end zone? Can the defense not only take it away, but turn them into 6 themselves? That'd be helpful. And that would actually make me a pretty ambitious college football fan this postseason. And they've done some of that. But just like we're kind of tracing the steps of there a moment ago, I think you clearly say, yeah, your defense can put you in a position in the fourth quarter to win a game. But if you have to have a game sealing or game closing kind of drive, or you actually got to go get points to win it, whether a field goal or whatever, can you put that together? That gut check moment's going to be out there. I have no doubt. We've been living sort of an enchanted life in that there have been some tight moments for about, 2.5, 3.5 quarters, and then boom, you win by 3 touchdowns. It's fun when you just run away from it at the end. So if you can repeat that, fantastic. But we all know what this is going to look like when things really, really get tight. So I do think I'll go this far, which I know is probably not as far as you want me to go, but I think absolutely you can find yourself in the final few minutes of a fourth quarter game against any of those guys with a chance to win it. Can your offense meet the challenge? I'll tell you what, with the guy with the moxie of Baron Morton, I will take my chances, no doubt about that. So give me a yes.
I like that. Yes, I will take. I think Texas Tech defensively has enough has enough to compete for a national championship and possibly win the thing in year one of this era of the complete investment into Texas Tech football. That's still not even top 10 in the country in investment for NIL. But Texas Tech, that is the narrative that they pay their players. Everybody does. And they're doing it with culture more than money because there are plenty of teams paying more. Casey Cowan, how can folks find more of your work as Texas Tech competes for that national title?
At Locked On Tech, anywhere, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere you get podcasts. Please do join us or just drop by Jones AT&T Stadium, United Supermarkets Arena, and say hey.
It is Locked On Texas Tech. It's all West Texas. And it's all Locked On Texas Tech. TikTok to Instagram to all of it. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. A crossover with Texas Tech and Dose Grande.